Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements. Order number 8, the Sexual Offences Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 78 of 2023, second reading, resumption of debate.
Honorable members, when we adjourned this debate, Honorable Jessica Mbalu was on the floor and she had a balance of 8 minutes. So if she's here, she can proceed. Okay, she's not in the house. Members who want to contribute, kindly press the intervention button. Okay, Honorable James Nikal, you are the first one. Member for same. Yeah, Sexual Offences Bill, yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. Let me start by saying this is an extremely important bill as regards sexual offences bill and how it affects the victims, particularly girls, young girls specifically. An issue there. What is in the Sexual Offences Act also defines the minister as a minister responsible for legal affairs and so on. What came through my mind, and you as a lawyer probably can guide on this, in this country today, who is the minister responsible for legal affairs? Is the Attorney General a minister? So it brings to my mind that even as we talk about the act itself, I have a feeling the act is hanging in terms of which minister should administer the act. Because the act says the minister responsible for legal affairs. The structure of the government as we know it, Madam Speaker, is that we have Attorney General who is sitting in the cabinet, but is the Attorney General, is she a minister by definition? So I think that as we align this with the Constitution is something we can look at. I don't know whether we can take advantage, or maybe we can look at in the Committee for the Implementation of the Constitution, which still exists, to look at that issue and define what a minister for legal affairs is. Other ministries, okay. When you say health, when you say education, we understand. But when you say legal affairs, there's an issue there. Madam Speaker, that was important to me, but I support the fact that we should align it with the Constitution we're calling them cabinet secretary instead of minister. So that I support. The second issue in this is actually to support to give education regarding sexual offenses. I think this is extremely important. There are many issues that people actually don't realize. Even when somebody is affected, like issues of defilement or rape, how you conduct yourself immediately, how people conduct themselves immediately. Like they would say, okay, this has happened, let somebody take a bath and let's go and report. The moment you take a bath and go and report, you have actually destroyed the evidence. So people need to know exactly what happens if you are going to follow a legal process and how you report. We also know that even in the places where people report, when you go to the police stations and so on, the way people are treated is actually not supportive. Sometimes the victim actually, the behavior that seems to imply that the victim called this upon themselves. We need education in those areas so that the public should know that in many cases, this is somebody who has been grossly offended. And I think it's hard for people who have never been affected to understand how gross this violation is. I don't think there's any violation for a human being that is greater than a sexual offense that is inflicted on a person. So the psychological impact is huge. And there's need for widespread education to understand the circumstances surrounding it, the legal issues that are, the psychosocial issues, the physical trauma, and even the possible long-term physical and health impacts of this. These are things that should actually be known. And the bill itself is general enough so that we can literally craft many issues on that. So that bit on new section 46A, promote public awareness on sexual offenses through national education and information and campaigns. I support that because we can put literally everything on that. The circumstances surrounding it, what really happens, who are the perpetrators, how we deal with it. Because sometimes people put upon themselves alternative dispute resolution. I don't think this is a situation where you will want an alternative dispute resolution that, oh, this is something has happened within the family. Now, I think let it just go, or some compensation. The family may feel that there's been compensation, but what about the victim themselves? Throughout their life, will that compensation really heal what they are going through? So that is extremely important. The other thing is the legal processes that are involved. How do people go about it? There is also an issue of stigma and shame. So people don't even want to come out and say, particularly if it happens in private, and in many cases, it will actually happen within families. Then people don't want, because of the stigma and the shame, they don't want to come out and say what happened. So people live with this for years, and you have children who are affected for life, or something that was hidden and kept, because even the people who are seeking peace did not, they looked at the relationship within the families, within the area, but they did not look at how it affects the person themselves, the victim. So I think that is important, that that area of promotion, we can broaden it, it can be wide, and the two cabinet secretaries that are involved will really have to really get a very huge program. And the issue here, we are giving the task primarily to the cabinet secretary in charge of legal affairs. But to a large extent, the education cabinet secretary will actually have a larger impact, have a larger mandate in terms of education. Schools are the best areas for changing people's character. So again, how will that be done? And I support when you have A and you have B. When you have to be, again, in consultation with the cabinet secretary responsible for matters related to education, again, that, as I said, is a big one. And it's, again, a big area. And we have to look at, when we come to education, when victims, particularly young girls, and even boys now, People have never, boys get sexually molested. Again, these are areas where a lot is hidden. How does it affect the education? The psychologically, how do they perform after that? How does it affect their conduct, their behavior? They may actually drop out of school. They may actually be trans. They may actually be very rude and controllable in school without people really realizing that the basic issue is what affected them. And when it comes to girls, Madam Speaker, if they get pregnant, leave alone the stigma that now this happened to you, probably you are not clean, now do you come back in class and be with us? How are they affected by their mates in the school? How are they handled by teachers? Even teachers themselves actually need to be educated. So that is important. But should they be pregnant, then you have another big issue. I know in this country we are relaxed about it. Girls can go and go back to school after they've been pregnant, but I don't think there is a legal framework that people can say, you cannot send me away from this school, because sometimes they actually go to another school. So that we need a legal framework on how do you handle them, what support do they need, and it's not only in probably senior schools and even up to university, even up to colleges. People are still affected if this happens. Are there any ways that they actually can be? When we are talking of vulnerable persons, somebody who has been a victim of sexual offense becomes themselves vulnerable in the future, and therefore it is important that that is taken into consideration, particularly if they become pregnant. Do we give them the support? We give them the support. How do they look after do they take the two roles? Because, Madam Speaker, let me tell you, biological forces are much greater than social forces. If you take a girl who has gotten pregnant and you put the welfare of their child against education, they'll pick the welfare of the child. So they will need to have the support so that the welfare of the child is taken care of so that they can continue with the education. That's a specific support we should look at. So, Madam Speaker, I see this as an extremely important bill that we should support. But as I said, the area of definition of the Cabinet Secretary is something we look at. With that, Madam Speaker, I support.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Malindi, Honorable Amina Mnyanzi.
Mheshimiwa Spika, asante sana. Nasimama kuunga mkono mswada wa marekebisho ya makosa ya kijinsia kama ilivyopendekezwa katika mswada huu wa marekebisho katika kifungu cha 46A kupitia uhamisaji wa umma kuhusu makosa ya kijinsia. Tutakuza utamaduni wa heshima, kuzuia unyonyaji wa makundi yaliyo katika mazingira hatarishi, kupunguza unyapaa unaozunguka makosa ya kijinsia na kukuza usawa wa kijinsia. Hata hivyo, ninapofikia kuanzisha kwa programu za kulinda, kuhifadhi na kuendeleza haki ya elimu kwa waathiriwa wa makosa ya kijinsia, wakiwemo waathiriwa wa mimba za utotoni, pia napendekeza mamlaka za uchunguzi zihusike kikamilifu katika kutekeleza sheria dhidi ya wahusika ya makosa. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika eneo langu bunge ambalo ninalolitoka, Mheshimiwa Spika, na ndio sababu kwa nini naunga mkono huu mswada, tumeweza kuona ya kwamba watoto wadogo wameweza kunyanyasika na wameweza kutumika vibaya kwa muda mrefu. Mheshimiwa Spika, mwaka jana, Mheshimiwa Spika, tulipata mtalii mmoja ambaye anatoka nchi ya South Africa na aliweza kulala na kuhadaa watoto zaidi ya 10 ndani ya Malindi, na hakuna jambo lolote lenye ambalo lilifanyika baada ya hapo. Kwa hivyo mimi naunga mkono hii mswada kwa sababu hata wale ambao walikuwa wameathirika, Mheshimiwa Spika, hawakujua baada zile athari ambazo walikuwa wamefanywa na huyu mzungu, hawakujua ni jinsi gani ya kuweza kujibeba, kuweza kwenda polisi, na jinsi gani ya kuweza kutetea haki zao, Madam Speaker. So vitu kama hivi, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni lazima watu waweze kufundishwa. Mafunzo haya yaweze kupitia hapa bunge, tuweze tuko sisi viongozi ya kina mama wa bunge, kuna cabinet secretary. So mambo kama haya, Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiyaweza kuyazingatia kwa ukamilifu, tutaweza kusaidia wale watoto wetu kule nje waweze kujua haki zao, waweze kujua vitu kama hivyo vikitokelezea wanapaswa kufanya nini, wafike wapi, ili waweze kujisaidia kuweza kupata haki yao. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia vile vile naona katika mitandao ya kijamii kuna watu kadhaa ama kuna mzungu kadhaa mwenye ambaye hatoki katika Kenya yetu na anazunguka huko nje, Mheshimiwa Spika, na inasemekana ya kwamba ameweza kuhadaa na kulala na wanawake wetu wengi, na naomba serikali iweze kutukulia hatua na sheria iweze kufuata mkondo wake, Mheshimiwa Spika, ili yule mtu ambaye ameweza kufanya masuala kama haya aweze kushikwa. Labda ni kweli watu walikuwa wameelewana kujihusisha katika matendo kama yale, lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, lazima pia tuweze kuangalia ya kwamba katika kuelewana kule hakukuwa na maelewano ya kwamba yale matendo ambayo yametendeka wakiwa wao kama watu wazima wawili, ilikuwa kuna ulazima gani ya kuweza kuipeleka mambo yale katika hadhara. Saizi tunaona kuna nyumba za watu zenye ambazo zinavunjika, kuna ndoa za watu ambazo zinavunjika, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo vitu kama hivi, Mheshimiwa Spika, tuko na ulazima ya kuweza kupigilia msasa, ya kuweza kusaidia wananchi wetu, ya kuweza hata juzi, Mheshimiwa Spika, tumesikia kule na naendelea kufuatilizia na mapolisi wangu sehemu za Watamu, tumesikia ya kwamba kuna mzee wa zaidi ya miaka 75 ameweza kulala na kumuhadaa msichana mdogo wa miaka 15, Mheshimiwa Spika. So vitu kama hivi, Mheshimiwa Spika, vinaturudisha nyuma na ni aibu kama nchi kama vitaendelea bila ya serikali kuweza kuingililia kati, na ni sisi ni tusimame tuweze kuweka mikakati sawa, tuweze kuweka sheria sawa sawa ili tuweze kusaidia watu wetu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo mimi naunga kikamilifu mkono hii sheria hii ili tuweze kuokoa watu wetu na tuweze kujua ni jinsi gani venye ambavyo tutawasaidia. Asante sana, Mheshimiwa Spika.
The Honorable Member for Kitui West, Honorable Edith Nyenze.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to hear my views on this bill. I say this is a very important bill because it actually tries to deter the acts of the offenders, offenders to the victims of sexual violence. It's very important to actually have a stricter and harsher penalties on people who commit such offenses, and this one will ensure that in future we reduce the numbers. Because if we continue like this, then this will affect the society, because these offenses resort into unwanted pregnancies, and this affects our children's education. It also affects their health, because it also results in sexually transmitted infections. So in such, it shows that our children or the people who are offended are psychologically affected. And since they are psychologically affected, they would need a lot of counseling, a lot of treatment. And on this, I would even say that with our education, these things should be taught to our children, should be introduced in schools, so that the young people, the young children, especially girls and boys, would know people won't try to attract them to commit sexual offenses and also affect their lives. So it's good to introduce such in our schools, in our education system, so that our children taught early. And then after the offenses are done, this bill is actually trying to improve the justice, to show that evidence should be collected and witnesses protected. Because such offenses, when they happen, people may fear to come up with as witnesses. But this bill is trying to improve justice to the victims by ensuring that better evidence is collected and witnesses are protected. This bill is also trying to support the survivors by the establishment of safe spaces and shelters for the victims. And by doing so, especially from if it's done in the family cycles, it can be done repeatedly and eventually and psychologically affect the victims in such a way that they may not have a way of escape. But if there is an establishment of safe spaces and shelters, then these people can be put in a secure place where they can be free to discuss about the offenses done to them, and where they can also be counseled so that they can get out of this stigma, because it brings about stigmatization. So this, there is also the issue of strengthened evidence collection. This bill aims to improve the collection and preservation of forensic evidence to support prosecutions. And when this one is strengthened, then it would mean that it would deter future happenings and reduce the number of people who would be involved in such. So, Madam Speaker, it's not Madam Speaker now. Speaker now, I say that there should also be mandatory compensation, where offenders will be required to pay compensation to their victims in addition to serving prison sentences. And this bill ensures that compensation is done to the victims, and also ensures that when they are put in prison, this will ensure that in future happenings are reduced. So I support this and say that it's a bill which has come at the right time. So I support.
Thank you. The Honorable Robert Pukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this bill by the Honorable Doris Donya Aburi on amendment to the Sexual Offences Act of 2006. And it's a short bill, Honorable Speaker, that looks to amend where we are talking about minister, and now in line with the new constitution, we are talking about cabinet secretary. It's also introducing in a new clause that the cabinet secretary shall promote public awareness on sexual offenses through national education and information campaigns. And this, I think, goes a long way, Honorable Speaker, to inform the public, to inform what are these sexual offenses. Because occasionally you might find that people do things which they think they might be normal, but when you look at the law interprets them as a sexual offense act, and it's not a right thing, and somebody should be able to be held accountable to that. In 46B, in consultation with the cabinet secretary responsible for matters relating to education, establish programs to safeguard, protect, and promote the right to education of victims of sexual offenses, including victims of teenage pregnancy. Honorable Speaker, you find that once somebody is been involved in sexual offenses, normally the victim carries a lot of weight, and more often the victim is looked on that and even gets withdrawn. This victim needs psychological support. It needs psychiatric assessment and also some bit of psychological support to be able to integrate back into the society. You have even teenage pregnancies, and this is a common thing, Honorable Speaker. They should also be assisted back to get into education, get back to school, and then be able to become productive citizens, because more often you'll find that in many societies where you have teenage pregnancies, the victim drops out of school, and the parents are not even supportive. And therefore, I think once we provide this in law, then we make it mandatory that anybody, whether you've teenage pregnancy, sexual offenses, can be integrated back into the society and get education to a level to which this person can be able to be a productive member of the society. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Thank you. Member for Uasin Gishu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First, I want to begin by congratulating and appreciating my colleague, the Honorable Donya Doris, for having the foresight to introduce this amendment to the Sexual Offences Bill. Ever since the Sexual Offences Bill was passed, yes, we've put many things in the law, and we should be safer. But unfortunately, there has been lack of awareness of what the law provides and the various protections that they can give to victims of sexual offenses or survivors of sexual offenses. And this particular amendment serves to cure that mischief, that we have put everything in the law, but the implementation has been wanting because of the lack of awareness. And what is laudable about these amendments is that it goes back to the very source where information can be given to our children and young people. There has to be aggressive campaigns starting from the schools. If you look at countries that have successfully been able to deal or mitigate the mischief of sexual offenses, they have been able to have campaigns at the school, awareness at the school, where children even have books from a very early age that inform them about what is a sexual offense, what is bad touch, what is good touch, what are the rules. Like many schools, they will not allow a male teacher to be with a female student with the door closed, to be open. In certain circumstances, there has to be another person in the room. When it is health workers, it's the same thing. There has to be another person in the room so that there is not only prevention, but there is also ensuring that the victim is not exposed to more abuse. We also have, when we talk about awareness and more education programs, it's also important to ensure that even the manner in which we have our reporting system, it should be one that is is protective. For example, I have constantly appealed to the Inspector General of Police and even the advisor on security matters to the President to say that we must have a situation where the gender desks in the police stations should actually be situated in the hospitals and in the dispensaries. Because when a person is defiled or raped, the first place they should go is to a hospital, not to the police station, or to the hospital first, then to the police station to get the P3, then go back to the hospital and so on, because even the police station doesn't feel safe. The place everyone runs to is the nearest hospital. And so that as we carry out these public campaigns, we tell people, when this happens, your first stop of call is to a health center, where you can get help, and you will feel safer speaking to a police officer who is stationed there, and where you have the protection of health support workers. Also, there is still need to be more awareness in relation to the way even the community deals with it. I know that once upon a time in the history of this country, right in this house, there was a member of this house who was accused of defilement and impregnating a young girl. And when they were about to be arraigned or investigated, they married the girl. And they got away with it. But that was before the time we had the sexual offences bill. And therefore, that still continues in certain areas that the public doesn't know. In fact, some families think in order to cure the shame is to have the girl married off. And it's even worse when it is a boy child who is sexually abused, because it's almost taboo and nobody reports it. In fact, they are told to man up and not say anything about it. And therefore, this is extremely important. This bill will also curb, with this awareness and education, it will also curb the problem of teenage pregnancies. The last time I checked, the World Health Organization put Kenya as having the highest number of teenage pregnancies in the world. And Kilifi County has the highest number of teenage pregnancies. So you can only begin to imagine what a big challenge there is. And therefore, I wish to support these amendments, and I must encourage our members of parliament that the law is not static. We must continue changing it as new challenges emerge. So if we find that even after these amendments, we need to put in more amendments, we should. And even following this particular amendment on the substantive legislation or the Act of Parliament, we must make sure the manner in which this awareness, public awareness, and establishment of the education programs to safeguard and protect and promote right to education of victims of sexual offenses, we must have a manner in which we do it. So it will be important that the Committee on Delegated Legislation to immediately engage and begin to develop regulations that can be able to guide this particular amendment. And with that, I support and appreciate, again, the members of parliament who have been very supportive of this particular amendment. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Makali Mulu. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to join colleagues in supporting these amendments to the Sexual Offences Act, Honorable Speaker. And as has been said, there are only two amendments. One is aligning the bill to the new constitution, where instead of talking about ministers, we talk about cabinet secretaries. And the second amendment targets creation of awareness on issues relating to sexual offenses. Honorable Speaker, when I listened to the Deputy Speaker make her remarks, something has just reminded me of something I've always been thinking, and maybe something we might consider as we go to the future, Honorable Speaker. I don't know whether we have a mechanism of finding out how the acts of parliament we pass here, in terms of implementation, are performing out there. And maybe that feedback might help us have more targeted amendments in the future. But having said that, Honorable Speaker, the issue of sexual abuses is all over the place, Honorable Speaker. These abuses have been experienced in churches, in villages, in offices, and even in our homes, Honorable Speaker. And I think the proposal to create awareness is a very important proposal, Honorable Speaker, because the victims need to know at what point am I abused, and at what point do I have a case to push forward? Because in some circumstances, Honorable Speaker, it might happen that there's an agreement. And I think where there's an agreement, Honorable Speaker, then you can't start complaining after that, having agreed. But it's important that the victims Kenyans are trained or are educated on what really what are the borders for you to say that I've been abused sexually, Honorable Speaker. But this is a very common thing, Honorable Speaker, and really I want to thank the Honorable Member who came up with this, because once people are educated, Honorable Speaker, it will be very easy to have the victims and the offenders actually the offenders can now be arrested and taken to court and be punished for this bad acts, Honorable Speaker. But having said that, Honorable Speaker, this is also applicable to both our children who are female and also boys, is also applicable to adults, Honorable Speaker, because we've seen this many times. And we need to ask ourselves also, Honorable Speaker, is what is really the main cause of this? Because I think there could also be a social disorder. Culturally, Honorable Speaker, people don't expect to do these things in a forced way. You don't need to use force. You use persuasion. So in a situation where force is being used, Honorable Speaker, then it could be a trigger to some other problem, Honorable Speaker, and we need to find out what really causes this. Is it psychological issues or is it mental issues? Because issues of also mental health, Honorable Speaker, have become very common. The other thing, Honorable Speaker, we need to find out, ask ourselves this. Could this also be because of the exposure? You know, our young people are watching television, the adults are also watching television. Could it be influencing that people really practice some of the things they see without really factoring in the cultural issues? So even as I support this, Honorable Speaker, I think we need to have a very well-structured way of creating awareness so that it could be in schools, it could be in the families, because I find it, most families have actually abdicated their roles in terms of talking about matters sex, are hardly discussed in family setup. So I think we need to go back to our earlier arrangement where even at family level, the grandfathers and grandmothers could sit with the young ones and educate them on some of these sexual issues. But schools can do that. Even church can also help.
But Honorable Makali, when you started, I was trying to hear you properly.
Yes.
Are you trying to make excuses for a sexual offense?
No, I'm not making excuses. What
Well,
I'm
there's
saying,
no excuse. Just that
there's no excuse.
for
I'm just
murder.
saying, Honorable Speaker, that I support the creation of awareness.
Okay.
But it has to be very structured, as I said, so that it can even start at the family level, then it can move to the church, and then it can move to the schools. And then the barassas, because even us, as members of parliament, we do a lot of barassas, Honorable Speaker. And I think in these barassas, we could be able to share with our people, the people who vote for us, some of the basics in terms of what do you need to do in case you are sexually abused. So that in that case, then the offenders can be punished. Otherwise, most of the offenders are getting away with it because maybe there is no evidence or the way the case has been structured is not the way it should be. So once we create awareness, I see a situation where we can reduce this problem to bare minimum. So with those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support and thank the Honorable Member who introduced these amendments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Honourable members, as communicated earlier, those who want to contribute to this on this bill, please press the intervention button. And so the next member online is the Honourable Member for North Imenti, the Honourable Dawood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion by Honorable Doris Donya. And Mr. Speaker, the first thing is, it started off with Honorable Joaquin Dungu, the current judge of the Supreme Court, when she introduced the Sexual Offences Bill in 2006, which became an act of parliament. And I think from there, we've taken off. Mr. Speaker, it is quite well to talk about public awareness, and I think it's a good thing with the public awareness. But, Mr. Speaker, we need to go further than the public awareness. Mr. Speaker, there was this report by the Gender-Based Violence Task Force where the former Deputy Chief Justice, Dr. Barasa, presented to His Excellency the President. And it goes further to say that sexual offenders should be castrated chemically. Mr. Speaker, I agree to that completely, and if it would be possible, if we can amend this bill to put that into law, I think it will go a long way. Mr. Speaker, we cannot be talking about teenage pregnancies at this time, because those teenage pregnancies, there must be a man behind that. And we need to not just leave it at that. We need to get DNA results and charge those people who have impregnated the girls, take them to court and let them be sentenced, Mr. Speaker. But if our public awareness is just saying that we have got teenage pregnancies and not dealing with it, I think we do not go far enough. We need to go further than that. When we are saying awareness, we need even that, I think one of the speakers has said, that we should know where to report. Mr. Speaker, we have an issue in the country where sexual offenses reporting is very, very low because of stigma, because of when a person who has been violated goes to report and they are laughed at and they are asked, you know, those minor details. We need to keep that aside. We need to have proper gender desks, whether it is in the police stations. But I would suggest to Honorable Donya, if she could introduce that we have those reporting desks at the hospitals. That is where the first reporting station would be, because when somebody is sexually defiled, they are taken first maybe to the police station, or they are taken first to the hospitals. And I believe if it is possible, we have a gender desk to report those things in a hospital and then do a follow-up. Because otherwise, going to a police station and not finding a female officer available to take your report, it makes it very difficult to report because you are ridiculed and nothing is taken into account. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Nyenze talked earlier about the penalties in this bill, but Mr. Speaker, there are no penalties in this bill because I think she may have been reading another bill, but we need to introduce the penalties. We need to remove the gender desks from the police stations to the hospitals, and I have made a suggestion earlier to the Minister, the Principal Secretary for Medical Services, Honorable Mudhoni, that we need to now change the way we work. Because unless we do not do that, we will not get those. And let us get DNA tests for people who we suspect have done this. Mr. Speaker, I even congratulate, I hope that bill comes through by Honorable Kuno regarding the one masala, which they talk about, they sort out the issue of sexual violence in the community. It should not be sorted out in the community. It should go to an open court of law, because by sorting it out, you are hindering the rights of the offended. Mr. Speaker, I think if we could do those few things, then we can change the history. But I am for castration, whether it is chemical or any other. Wacha wakatwe. Mungu awabariki.
Thank you. The Honorable Irene Mayaka, and before you contribute, all members join me in welcoming students from Fero School, Nairobi, Embakasi Central, Nairobi County. They are here to follow proceedings this morning. They are welcome to follow proceedings, and I would urge the Honorable Mayaka to welcome them as she makes a contribution.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And before I even begin, let me take the opportunity to welcome the students to Parliament. It's a great opportunity for them to be able to learn what it is that their legislatures do. So, karibu sana to the students. Honorable Speaker, I would like to also add my voice to this particular amendment bill, which seeks to amend Section 46A of the Sexual Offences Amendment Bill, sponsored by my sister, the Honorable Doris Aburi. And I'd really like to thank Honorable Donya for bringing this bill and for sponsoring it. Because, Honorable Speaker, this is a very important bill, especially at this particular point, because a lot of assumption is made that there's awareness in terms of what sexual offense is and how sexual harassment even begins. Honorable Speaker, Part A of the bill is talking about promotion of public awareness on sexual offenses through a nationwide education and information campaign. Honorable Speaker, this last weekend, we've been treated to very embarrassing videos of a Russian guy who was trying to woo Kenyan women, who were quite unaware because of he was wearing gadgets that were taking videos while he was trying to woo them. And Honorable Speaker, if you look at even Section 55, Section 43(1)(f of our Constitution, which speaks about general right of education for everyone, I actually think that this education is not even important for just children. Even us as adults, we need this education because people need to be very aware of their surroundings and people who are trying to woo them into this direction. Because it's very embarrassing to see grown women in Kenya being wooed into getting into hotel rooms, into Airbnbs, without even being aware of their surrounding. They don't even know if this is someone who wanted to even harvest their organs or rape them or something like that. So awareness of this is very, very important. And awareness begins, Honorable Speaker, from even the girls being able to know that it is okay to say no. Because some of them don't even know that it is okay to say no. They think they're doing men a favor, or they think by saying no, they're being disrespectful. So this education is very important. Honorable Speaker, even the issue of stigma. Because a lot of times the reason why sexual offenses are not even brought to justice is because of the stigma attached to it. So the people in the homestead do not even want to go and report that their child has been raped, even if it's by someone who is a relative to them, because they feel like it brings embarrassment to their home. So it's very important for people to be aware that it is okay to actually report this. Section 2 of the amendment by Honorable Donya seeks to ensure that the Cabinet Secretary, in consultation with the responsible for matters of education, is also ensuring that this particular education is being done. I had Honorable Nyikal questioning and asking who the Cabinet Secretary in charge of legal affairs is. Right now, under our current constitution, we do not have a Cabinet Secretary for Legal and Justice and Constitutional Affairs as we did in the previous dispensation. But we do have the AG, who has the Legal Affairs Department that sits under her office. Secondly, we also have the Women Advisor to the Cabinet, who advises the President on matters to do with women affairs and policies relating to women. So we do have people who are sufficiently representing us in cabinet in terms of these particular affairs and who can actually take this up. And Honorable Speaker, I really want to believe that once this is actually assented into law, that we will have the necessary steps taken in place by the cabinet secretaries in charge of this, so that we can have a comprehensive curriculum on sexual matters in this country. Because we shouldn't take these things for granted. And Honorable Speaker, already in the Constitution, it covers the fact that we have a right to education, not only in terms of compulsory basic education as is indicated in Article 53(1)(b), but also Article 53(1)(f) that talks about general right of education, Article 55A that talks about statute of ensuring there's relevant education to the youth and training, and Article 55B that talks about minority and marginalized in terms of guaranteeing specialized opportunities in education. So this is already covered in terms of the Constitution. But also further emphasis, Honorable Speaker, is that addressing the issue of education going further into actually addressing the issue of sexual offenses and addressing the issue of the need for education and ensuring that our children, our young ones, from the onset really are aware of these particular factors. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to support this particular bill because we stand at a situation that is very grave in our country. We have so many cases of early pregnancies that are currently occurring. And Honorable Speaker, this is a matter that we all need to take responsibility of as leaders in this country, and also in terms of the level of Cabinet Secretary in ensuring that the specialized education on sexual offenses, on victims of teenage pregnancy, on stigma issues are all taken into consideration, and there's practicability in ensuring that this particular new amendment is actually implemented. With those few remarks, I support and I submit. I thank you.
Thank you. I cannot see the member for Lamu East in the house. Is she in the house? Then member for Marakwet, Elgeyo Marakwet, Honorable Bangaleche.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute into the bill. And let me appreciate Honorable Donya for bringing in the Bill of Sexual Offense Amendment Bill 2023, National Assembly Bill number 78. Mr. Speaker, this is something that has actually been affecting our communities, and we have been missing, or we have never figured out the proper way of doing awareness or making our children or even adults, as Honorable Mayaka has said, to be aware of what is happening. As much as we have the Sexual Amendment, so the Sexual Bill Offense Act, we lack advocacy. And therefore, if we are to implement this bill as intended by Mheshimiwa Donya, by addressing the gap in the law by mandating the responsible Cabinet Secretary to promote public awareness on sexual offense through nationwide education and information and campaign, it will improve on how we deal with sexual offense bills. Mr. Speaker, you know, we live in communities whereby some of the issues are preferred to be under or are preferred not to be made public, even as ugly as they are, or even when they are affecting and are bringing a lifelong effect to an individual. At times, some communities would prefer not to discuss some issues, and it is not even some few communities, but even individuals would prefer to keep mum over some issues. Maybe their child has been molested, has been raped, or even adults, they will prefer to keep it under for the fear of shame. And at times, it's also because the law might not be adequate enough or does not may properly not be able to apprehend the victims. So, Mr. Speaker, there is a word in the Bible, I'm a staunch Christian, and I would wish to wish all the Christians happy Lent and the Muslims even as they start their Ramadan. Proverbs 22 verse 2 says, train up your child in a way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Some of these instincts, some of the issues we teach our children will never depart from them. And one of the issues that I advocate, Mr. Speaker, that should be taught to our children is what is wrong and what is right. Not only what is wrong and what is right, they should also be taught what happens when somebody has done something wrong to you, or something that can have lifelong challenges or some lifelong complications. Like, for instance, in our societies, there is a very high rate of teenage pregnancies. You find that those teenagers are underage girls, girls who are not of, who constitutionally are underage. They didn't consent, or they were, most of them, you find they've been impregnated by adults, people who are supposed to be their caretakers, people who are supposed to be teaching them. And you wonder why in the society there are so many teenagers who are pregnant or who have children, and there are no people being charged for impregnating them or to have abused them as young girls. So there is a problem and there is a gap there, because you find these girls don't know where to run to. They are not aware where they should go and report these abusers, these people who molest them or people who end up abusing them and make them pregnant or even leave them with lifelong diseases and consequences of having unwanted pregnancies, having to take care of children they never planned to, with people they never intended to have children with. So, Mr. Speaker, it will be good if it is introduced. And last week, during on Wednesday, there is a member who said, if we introduce this education early in primary, we will be teaching our children, or we will be exposing our children to information they ought not to. But remember, if a child is abused, that person who has abused that child has introduced that child to things that he or she was not supposed to know. So it is better to be ahead of those people who maybe would want to teach and abuse our children. Mr. Speaker, I am of the opinion that even if it is possible, it becomes part of the curriculum. So that when a child knows that if one or two things has happened to them, some children might fear their parents. They'll be able to go and report it to the chief or to the police station or even to their teachers. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. And for those who will be bold enough to go and report it to their children, to their parents, should do it early enough remember, there are other challenges apart from maybe pregnancies or even the physical effects of rape and other abuses. A child might contract a disease that will live with them like forever. But if you bring that education very early, a child will be aware and will know that in case something happens to me, like in a case of rape or in a case of an abuse, that child will know that I need even to go to a doctor within 72 hours to get a PEP so that you cannot get other diseases like STIs and STDs. But if you don't teach them, or if they are not aware of it, a child will just decide to keep quiet and not tell anybody. When you go and report a rapist or somebody who has abused a child, they always need evidence. And in most cases, they'll ask you not to shower, not to remove the clothes. But if the child is not aware, you will find that even before reporting to the parent, the child maybe have sanitized or has washed himself or herself, has changed, and that one will tamper with the evidence. So to me, it will be very important if the education will be made public. And Mr. Speaker, it should not only be introduced in schools. You find even in villages, there are still parents. We live in a community whereby we still have people who are illiterate and semi-illiterate. Others have gone to school and others have not even gone to school. You find that you have a parent who will report to you an issue. Like when you meet these teenage mothers and you ask their parents, what happened? What happened to your child? They'll tell you, I don't even know who the father is. My child never told me anything about it. Later on, when I realized they were pregnant, they tried to explaining to me, or they'll even tell you that I have known from the word go, but it was the uncle, it was the chief of the area or other respected people in the society, and the parent does not want to share because of fear of the consequences. So it will be good if we can expose these people. In the early 90s, when the spread of HIV/AIDS was so rampant in the country, you would find an advert everywhere. There were billboards everywhere. It was before news. It was after news, in the radios, in the televisions. And it has really helped the people of Kenya to know how to control, manage, and even prevent, and even live with it because of the constant awareness. Awareness shouldn't be something that is going to be done one day. I've heard people suggesting that it should also be done in public barazas. Yes, it is good to do it in public barazas. But public barazas, you find not everybody goes to a public baraza. Or it is not a continuous thing that people will be having the knowledge day to day. It should be it should be made a mainstream awareness that will be done in churches, in mosques, in schools, in public barazas, and even, if possible, it should be provided in the syllabus to very young and very, when the children are still very young and very able to learn and get to understand it better. Mr. Speaker, just to conclude, I would also urge the members of this House, because many a times we are those opinion leaders, and many a times we get opportunities even to address people in rallies, in weddings, in burials, or other social gathering. It is always good to leave a word of sexual awareness for the people to understand. At times, people might look at it as a very minor thing in the community, but the effects are so much. In every family, it has been affected, and the consequences will live with us like forever. You find even some other behaviors that people carry on into their lives. You find somebody becomes a serial rapist. When they are asked, they say, I was molested. You find a girl becomes just unruly or uncontrolled in the society due to the shame or due to the challenges that they developed after being harassed or sexually abused. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this motion, and I would wish to appreciate the member, and it should be made aware. I repeat again, and let me make clear that it should be incorporated in the basic education so that our children can learn it as young as they are. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Makueni County.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I'm from Makueni constituency. I also wish to put my voice to this very important bill by Honorable Donye. The amendment comes in time because when we look at the offenses, sexual offenses bill, there is a gap it did not actually address, and it creates a lot of gap between the practice and the law. Because while the law was very clear what needed to be done in terms of sexual offenses bill, Honorable Speaker, the practice continued in our communities because of lack of knowledge. And I think that is what this amendment is actually going to address. Because when our communities remain unaware on the issues of sexual offense, even when the law is very clear, they continue violating without an action. And I think, Honorable Speaker, that is where the tire touches the road. I'm very excited because yesterday I was having a meeting with the community, and this issue came very well, very much. We are investing in terms of CDF to so many learners, yet getting a lot of dropouts through early pregnancies in schools. And those people who make those offenses, they are being embraced in the community because even the elders who come to settle the cases, they are still following their traditional know-how. They will even request the money to marry the girl. And even when the money marries the girl, the girl loses all the opportunities in life. And they are doing it with a lot of innocency. They actually, when they are deciding the man should marry the girl, they are doing it with a very clean conscience, thinking they are helping the girl to live and live better with her husband. Honorable Speaker, you can imagine how painful it is for a girl to surrender to be somebody's wife who actually raped you for the rest of your life. So I think this bill, if implemented, this amendment, if implemented, it will actually add a lot of value because it will give these girls awareness so that the law, the sexual offenses law can actually be helpful to them. Honorable Speaker, it's also important to realize the social cultural setup of our communities continues still to promote some of these practices, including wife battering, because they believe, because of gender biases that have continued from time to time, they do not see an offense in that. And this does not only hurt the woman, it actually affects the entire family. And it's also a sexual offense bill, which this amendment addresses. Because if our people get this awareness, Honorable Speaker, then we'll have many people in our societies who can stand up for the vulnerable and the disadvantaged. And that actually will bring a lot of security at the household level and even in the community level. Honorable Speaker, you know what is not budgeted, it's hardly implemented. If this goes to the mandate of the Honorable the Cabinet Secretary, it gives an opportunity for issues related to issues of gender violence to be budgeted for, because sometimes these are assumed to be very small things that are causing a lot of havoc in the community, but people think water, classroom is the big problem. But we realize these are very small, they look very small, but it is really touches the fiber of the society. So I think having this amendment will enable the secretary, the ministry concerned, to have a budget towards advocacy, awareness raising, right up to the community level. And Honorable Speaker, I think this will add a lot of value into our society. Honorable Speaker, I had one of the members recommending castration. But I think the issue is not the issue of the act, it's the dignity. We are not only looking at pregnancy. Pregnancy being a problem, we are looking for more than pregnancy. Even without the issue of, even if people were castrated, we are looking at what are you doing to the dignity of the woman, of the girl, of the boy. So castration, in my own opinion, Honorable Speaker, I don't think it will actually add a lot of value, because even castrating men is a sexual offences bill. It's a sexual offense, because they are entitled to their sexuality. So what we are looking for is the discipline of the human person, and castration in itself is actually, because when we talk about a sexual offense, it's not about women alone. Even men need their sexual dignity, and they need to be protected, and this awareness should be there. Honorable Speaker, my last point is the issue of when we are having formal education. I support this point. It's important, once this awareness is entrenched, becomes slow, it also happens in our school. Because when you have two parallel schools, the informal school and the formal school, the informal school in the community talking so much and supporting the issue of sexual offenses, then you realize the formal school might not do a lot. So when this awareness goes up to the communities, Honorable Speaker, we are likely to change the society and to live by values. Honorable Speaker, in a summary, this amendment will ensure that we have societies that lead their life based on values, and the value system will actually promote the well-being of the society. So, Honorable Speaker, I support and congratulate the member. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Masinga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to be able to say something about the amendment bill, 2023 National Assembly Bill 78, which is the principal object of the bill is to amend the Sexual Offense Act, Cap 63A, to mandate the Cabinet Secretary responsible for legal affairs to promote public awareness of sexual offenses. This is the body of the amendment. And this amendment comes at a time when our country is bleeding for such offenses in our communities, in our villages, in all the places that we pass by, such that whenever such a thing happens, the dignity of that person is gone, and that person is shameful all through his or her life. This has become rampant even by not differentiating whether one is a woman or a man or an old man or an old woman. And this should be promoted by the awareness everywhere. The way the Minister of Health normally promotes their issues, this should be promoted the same, so that everybody is aware that the sexual offense is harmful, is crime, and it is an offense that needs no forgiveness. So I am trying to say that this crime is one of the worst crimes that one can commit to anybody, because you are forcing somebody to do anything which you are not permitted. And therefore, I am supporting the awareness so that this can be told everywhere, wherever we go, like the way we normally announce our bursaries. When we want to give bursaries in your constituencies, you make sure that even in the churches, it is announced. In wherever the meeting, there's a meeting, we shall be giving bursary on such and such a thing. So this should be told, and everybody should be aware that this is a crime. More often, many of these offenses, once they are reported, the police gets away with them. And even they tell the criminal who does such a kind of thing the tricks on how to evade it. And even some of them normally take bribes. Like I know a few in my constituency who took bribes to get away with the sexual offense of some minors. And therefore, this should be told even the consequences of the people that it does the act, and also the consequences of the police that tries to evade this crime act so that they can help the victims, they can help the offenders to get away with it. Mr. Speaker, the bill also seeks to have education in the schools through the Ministry of Education or through the Cabinet Secretary. This can be a helpful channel, because many of the victims